Finnerty, honestly, thank you for this because sadly I can relate to it, and many other people can as well, I'm sure. Obviously, such a passion, and this is so from your heart. But what kind of got you going to say, you know what, I'm going to write this all down and I'm going to share my experience with people? Why did you want to do that?
You know, as an actor, I've always had such respect for writers that I've always thought about writing, but I was afraid to actually try it because I just had such a, I don't know, I was just afraid. And I also didn't know that I had a story to share necessarily. And then, you know, and then my marriage fell apart. And then I was like, this might be something worth sharing down the line when I'm not so bruised and bloody from it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, on the inside, not physically abused.
No, for sure.
But,
I get it.
Yeah. And, you know, to be honest, I told a friend about how I met my current husband. And she's like, you have to write that. I said, oh, I'm going to write it. We met this, it's a crazy way we found each other on Misconnections. It was like this kind of crazy, like more romantic story. And she's like, you have to write that. And I said, I'm just not sure if it's a play. Meanwhile, I've never written anything. And a few months later, 4 months later, I saw on Facebook that she was like, hey, everybody, my new play, Misconnections, just got in the whatever players. And I was upset that someone else had sort of written my story, but then I was also more upset with myself because I was like, Finn, because I was like, I was going to write that. I was like, you were, Finn? You were going to write that? You know, at 40 years old, you've never written anything, but I was supposedly going to write that story. So it was actually a great thing that happened because I was like, I'm going to write this. And so I said, I'm not going to share it with anybody. This will just be something that I do for myself. And then so I decided to write it, not necessarily, I don't think I would have ever written it if I'd known that I was actually going to make it. I think I might have been a little more protective or I would have stopped myself out of perfectionism or whatever. But I thought I deserved, you know, that I deserved to at least give it a shot and to see what this story was. I originally thought it was going to, you know, sort of end with the way I met my current husband, but this story ended up not being about that. And I had this great mentor who was like, that's a different film. That's a different film. The tone, that's like a romantic comedy tone. And he's like, the tone of this is just very different and it's very unique and it needs to sort of be its own story. And the more I thought about it, I did not want this story to be about her getting the boy or the job or the baby. It was just going to be about her on her way to being okay. Like that's just going to be okay. And divorce and any kind of breakup is awful, but you just think like, you know what, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it had to have been a cathartic process for you, I would think.
It was. And I didn't realize, you know, the story becomes something other than your story, right? Because then it's like sort of, first of all, the whole film itself is from Jennie's point of view. Mm-hmm. So we never get his side. There's no scene with him and his friends, you know, talking about what's going wrong with the marriage or, you know, it's just her memory. And it's also her memory, we learn later, from a place of healing also. So it's like you know, we kind of, with it being sort of bookended, you realize those were the memories she needed in order to kind of flash through to let go. Mm-hmm. And so they were good and bad, and they were probably tainted with the willingness to let go.
Yeah. And John and Kristine, I mean, what I love so much about this is obviously a lot of your friends came on board and helped you with this, you know, which is so great to see everybody pop up, all the actors, you know, from Michael Emerson onwards. I mean, it's just chock-a-block, but you can see that everybody is your friend and they want to be there to support you. So John and Kristine, tell me a little bit about when you guys were approached. And I think you've got the parenting married couple thing down pretty well. So, you know.
Well, strangely enough, we had never worked together.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, actually we did.
Did we?
EST.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we did the 52nd Street Project, which is a project for these kids who are, you know, living in projects, and they write these plays, and they're all 9 years old, and you were a goat or something, and I was a shepherd, or I don't know.
Was I a stalk of weed and you were a goat and you ate me, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, it was very bizarre.
But it wasn't very realistic.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So this was our kind of legitimate debut together. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's nice.
It was wonderful for us because we love Finnerty and we were excited when she called us and made this offer. And for us, it's kind of nice because we were able to play husband and wife together, which is kind of an interesting challenge. Having been husband and wife for 30 plus years, but we have an only child, and it's a daughter, and she's 30. So it was that it kind of brought that into the mix, and it was kind of fun to explore that.
Yeah, it was a really nice sort of circle of knowing, Finnerty, how incredibly supportive your parents have been in this, and also plugging into how we feel about our daughter. And in that scene where I go, I would absorb all of your pain.
Right.
If I could. I know we feel that way about our daughter.
Of course.
So it's just sort of this family connection, and knowing how incredible your parents have been in this. So that was all a really nice way to feel like such a part of it, and even part of the bigger part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kristine, because you have a pretty good track record of playing moms. Let's all go back to Buffy. I mean, for goodness sake, she was an icon. I mean, really. So how approaching this mom, or approaching moms in general, there's so many different forms of us. I'm a mom. I'm pretty much in the same boat as you guys, in the same age group. I have 2 sons, 28, 25, that whole thing, empty nester, all that. And it's interesting to see how parents treat their children in different ways. Like, it fascinates me. I always continuously get advice from people. You should do this, you should do that. And I go, well, you're not in my position, so shut up,
Yeah, that's treacherous territory when people start coming at you, telling you what you should do with your kid. It's kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, for us, I'm just thinking out loud. Not a good thing, maybe, but
it's okay.
but seriously, like in the Kristine and I, we kind of came to this realization at one point, and I think this was kind of. There was an overlay in terms of our personal experience with Eleanor, our daughter, and our experience with Jen, our daughter, in the movie, which is like, no matter how bad it gets between us, we always treat like Kristine treats Eleanor, and I treat Eleanor the way we want to be treated.
Sure, of course.
But we can go at each other, But we're with Eleanor. It's kind of. And I kind of got that sense with this, with us and Jen in the film. It's kind of, because she's going, especially since she's going through this really clearly this very difficult time in her life. First of all, it's twofold, because we're celebrating her coming together, having found what she's, and we want so badly for her to be happy. Exactly. It's that thing. That's the age-old thing. If you just want your kid to be happy, and then you have to witness the other side of it and the breakup, and be there for.
Be supportive. Yes. Absolutely.
Unequivocally.
Yeah, no question about it. Finnerty, for you, one thing I loved that you explored throughout the film is the process of finding a therapist. Okay, I could go on for hours about that, but it's very interesting how you approach it, because, a lot of them are portrayed as just, I don't know, idiots, honestly. They're there to take your money, and they're there to hear what they want to, tell you what you want to hear. It's a very interesting process.
Yeah, I think for Jennie too, I of course, that was the first time I'd ever been to therapy. So my world was tipped so sideways that I was like, this is not okay, right? Like, I mean, if I were to go back, and there was no way I would sit with, the Stan character. I wouldn't even sit there for 5 minutes, but my world was so tipped that I was trying to figure out which way was up. So I was like, well, if this guy could possibly help us, it just felt like, and as artists, as actors, there is a small part of us that is clocking a little bit of the absurdity of it. And yeah, I found that's what I was so desperate to try to find someone who could sort of rescue us, and it just wasn't there. We could not find it. And frankly, in our case, in my case, it was past that point. There was no, but we just had to go through the motions of trying to sort of, but
find the right person. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's why it was important for us to find that last therapist that not all therapists are bad. That was important too, because there are really great therapists, and
for sure.
And that she was determined to find the help that she needed. It was more kind of a good on her, I think, than even someone rescuing her or having the right answer.
Mm-hmm. Has your ex-husband seen this?
He hasn't, but we did get to see each other. It was a strange thing where I had to sort of ask for permission officially. And it was so nice to see him. It was so strange. I was like, this is the weirdest. That should be a film in itself, that 90-minute, margarita lunch was just bizarre. Because I'd
like to see that on the stage. I think that
would be a great play. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm sure the server was probably like, what the hell is this relationship? This is bizarre. But it was really good to see him. And he was super proud of me for having written this. And it was similar to the scene that I wrote at the end of the movie. This, without realizing it, that lunch felt like that for me, where it was a little bit of like, it was really good to see him, and he was super proud, and good. And it was important for me in the film. Obviously, the film is but it was important for me in the film to. God, I'm such a crybaby. I'm such a whip.
Oh, it's okay.
Such a crybaby.
I'm the same.
I didn't want the David character to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
I really wanted people to feel like, oh God. Everybody's divorce story is different, but I wanted it to be a sense of like, God, that's like my brother, or that's like, Joe over at blah, blah, blah. Like, he loved her. It was done. Like it was good. And then it wasn't, and it was over. Like, and I feel like there's so many people going through similar things, and how do we move forward? This idea of moving on, and how can you forgive and move on?
Yeah, it's a very tough process, and it takes time.
I think that's the beauty of this movie, is that you absolutely do capture that, and it covers really weighty territory, but it's done so deftly. It never tips into the model, and there's something so, and it's huge kudos to you for that, because you're carrying it, and there's just the perfect amount of it's amazing what you do. It's hard to act with you, because it's like acting. But people say don't act with cats or babies, animals or babies. It's so good.
Yeah.
That you're acting with Finn. You're just like, oh my God, I better plug into the real, because it's effortless. It's effortless, and that allows you to go on this journey that you were just describing, which is it's not about good versus bad. It's not about, it's just about truth. It's about the humanity and what all of us face in so many day to day in relationships, and with parents, children, with obviously with our partners. It's just an amazing achievement, I think. And
I agree.
Yeah,
well said. Totally agree with you. Kristine, did you want to jump in there?
Oh yeah, it's like nobody gives you a manual or a mandatory class when you have a child. You have to figure it out yourself in the context of the two parents, and the context of who the child is. And so I think it's the same for marriage. We don't all have the tools. When it's great and it's so wonderful, but over time, if things change and shift, so many people, so many of us don't have the tools to know how to really communicate, and people can just drift apart, and then they get so apart that they're confused. I love that part in the script where he, you know, says, I would have turned around. If I didn't turn around, I wouldn't have come back. And then later he says that wasn't true. And that just gave me such a sense of how confusing all of this was for him.
Yeah.
And how he didn't know how he felt through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really,
so I felt like you really achieved that sense of that you wanted to do, and that you don't blame him.
And that would have been the trap, isn't it? In the writing, to make him the guy who was, you know, in order to make Jen more palatable, to make him just enough of a guy where he was a little schmucky, a little. I mean, it's as an actor, you come across that all the time. You're like, why can't you just make it harder for the audience to even make the choice? You don't want it to be that easy. You don't want it to be like, oh, he's obviously a jerk. It's, you know, it's so hard playing the. And I thought he was really great.
Yeah,
he was just.
Jeremy,
I agree.
It was Davidson. I thought he did such a great job. I didn't really know him before, and I've seen his work since, and he plays such different characters. So it was really cool because he seemed like the perfect David to me, where just a good guy, but pretty quiet, not a man of a lot of words. And I thought he played David so beautifully and made us still, you know, feel for them. And at the end, in some ways, I think you kind of think, you know, she might be better off than him in a way, you know, like he still seems a little bit lost.
And,
You
absolutely.
know,
It's so well written, really. It really is. And it just comes across as so heartfelt. And I think it should be used as therapy in its own right. There you go.
A therapy tool.
Absolutely. Now, I have to say, like I said earlier before you jumped in, Finnerty, I am a huge TV-aholic. Like, honestly, it's kind of sad, actually, how much TV I watch and always have. And the three of you, when you look at it, you have all been in very iconic television series. Finnerty, of course, Orange is the New Black pretty well paved the way for Netflix. Like, honestly, without that show, we wouldn't have the Netflix that we have today. I strongly believe that. It really did pave it. You were so fantastic in it. Of course, Kristine, Buffy, I mean, people probably still come up to you to this day and talk to you about that role. And then, of course, John, I mean, Mad About You, seriously, I never, ever missed an episode. And I was just like jumping for joy when you had that reunion just recently. It must have been phenomenal to be back with Paul and Helen. I mean, come on.
It was. No, it was, because, you know, people would always come on that. People would come, actors, guest star on the show, and that's a tough job, guest starring on a television series, because you're always coming into a family that's established. And I would always kind of make sure that the guest stars felt comfortable, because it's so hard to merge onto that freeway, you know?
Yeah.
And they would say, you know, get to about day 2 or day 3 of the work week, and they'd say, is it always like this? Because they had guested on other shows. And there's a lot of, it's high stakes. There's a lot of money involved, a lot of tension. No tension, you know, because Paul and Helen were so chill that it was just kind of like, I said, no, this is what it is all the time. And they'd be like, oh, I hate you. Because it was just one of those sets that was just really lovely. And to get back with everybody was just, you know, everybody's kind of, wow. No one knew what it was, but within 2 or 3 days, it was like we had it was like we it was just so much fun.
I always envied that apartment. It was too big for Park Avenue, wherever they lived. Oh my God, that apartment was beautiful. I think it even got bigger in the reboot there.
It
That was insane. And also, I have to mention, sorry, ladies, I don't mean to single him, John, but episodes again, Merc, what a jerk. I mean, seriously, what a great role that was too. Wow.
Yeah, that took jerk and just like, that was like jerk to the nth power, you know. So that's better than being kind of like a partial jerk, you know. Just, this guy just is all.
There are no limits.
I remember reading it and saying to Kristine, when I was reading for it, I said, this is impossible. You can't make this character palatable. You can't.
No.
He is so offensive. And, you know, and then I just, when I went in to read for it, I something clicked and I went, oh no, he's just entirely oblivious. So that was it.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, there was something fun about just being, it's just a walking id.
It was completely unedited.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah. Well, it's always fun.
Thank you.
It's fun to play the jerk, obviously. Listen, I just want to thank all three of you for your time this morning. It's been a huge pleasure for me to talk to all of you. Finnerty, this movie really is fantastic. You've done such a great job with it. And, you know, I may call you on the side to get some personal therapy that I don't want to expose on Zoom here. But I do appreciate it. And again, thank you, all three of you, for your time this morning. This has been such a thrill for me.
Oh, good, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Fantastic. Our pleasure.
Yes.
You're welcome. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I hope to see you all again real soon. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Bye.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.